Hey YouTube, Trevor here. So I just wanted to go over a few things on the Cabriolet project. First of all, thanks for checking out this episode, and make sure you subscribe because my content is so sporadic and I don't have a release schedule. It's just kind of when I can get to the work and I can get to the videos and get them done, they roll out. And this past year has been terrible, right? Like I may have released 4 videos. This year is going to be a lot different. I'm going to be dedicating a lot more time to the channel. But again, very randomly posting, one video and then I'll skip a week or two and then I'll post 2 or 3 videos in 4 days. And so hit that subscribe button and make sure you ring the bell because you won't get notified otherwise. Other than that, I just want to give you guys a quick update on the Cabrio and cover a product that I've been using that I think you guys might like and might enjoy using. I've thoroughly am impressed by it, and I think you might like it too. So let's take a look at what I've been working on while they wait on some parts to arrive for the Cabriolet. Alright, so there's the brand name. They're called Spill Fighter. Here's a rebuild manual. Let's go ahead and move this off. And you can see they're basically a giant absorbent pad is perforated right down the middle. And there's 100 in this box. I mean, there's just, 100 of them. So I put them in the bottom of this tray. This is just a pan I got from Home Depot. It's a plastic water heater tray. But here's our final drive housing. Okay, you can see I've got, I'm into everything, right? I've got the axle seals replaced on each side. So the stub axle seals, and then the inner seals, there's O-rings and seals there. There's an O-ring here, okay? There's a seal here. I've had to flush this multiple times to try and get the grit out of it from being an idiot and not doing it properly. But I started cleaning the case and cleaned it as best I could. And when I started getting into it, I realized there was so much grit under things like this that I went ahead and just stopped what I was doing and put everything back together. And then I'm gonna come back and blow it out. But it's been thoroughly soaked in low odor mineral spirits and tons of WD-40. I have probably a gallon, I think is what that was. Anyways, point being, all that stuff flushed out and landed here. And this thing has done a fantastic job of soaking it up. So when I'm done with all my nasty oily rags and oil contaminated stuff, I bag it up and take it to the recycling center. So that's where that is. The transmission is waiting on parts. There are some extremely rare parts that you can still get hold of. I heard from the distributor that they're extremely low supply, so they may not be shipping them from Germany. But this inner piston, there's a piston at the bottom of this assembly that pushes up on the clutch pack and engages the clutches and the steels and locks up. Same on this one. It's down there underneath those springs. So the piston pushes up against the springs and takes everything that's in this pack, pushes it against this lock ring and locks it up. Same with this big drum. Spring loaded. I don't know if you can see the springs down there. Okay, and this goes on the back of it. This one was somewhat available. Still has to come from Germany, but it is available. These two are extremely rare. You're gonna need all 3, okay? And while I was in it, I figured I'd just go ahead and replace the accumulator. I did put a new seal on the accumulator. All these seals that came in the kit are fine. And then, worst of worst, I'll feed in some footage, but I'll show you just how damaged the separator plate was on the valve body. But the valve body's been completely exploded apart, and every single part thoroughly cleaned. And then with the valve body bare, I cleaned every single individual piston, spring, top cap assembly, put it all back together, and resealed it with fresh oil. But the separator plate, this is just temporary. I'm gonna have to pull all these screws out, pull the top half and the bottom half apart again, and replace the separator plate. I was able to locate a guy in Hawaii. He has some CNC water jet cut valve body separator plates that I'm gonna go ahead and I have to drill one small hole to make it work. But as you can see, the rest of the case is completely thoroughly cleaned. I've come through with some Scotch-Brite and just resurfaced this by hand, nice and smooth. So the pistons, all right, the seals, the scrapers on that piston can float in and out of here beautifully. And yeah, any surface like that, I've come through with a little bit of Scotch-Brite and just kind of kissed the surface of it just to kind of make it nice and smooth again. So I'm at the final part here where I got to take these two axle stubs. Again, took forever to get these things apart and cleaned thoroughly. Each of these sub-assemblies are cleaned. There's their C-clips that hold them in. These need to go back in, but I'm not liking the conditions of these. Look at that. Giant chunky scrapes, and yeah, this thing's seen some use for sure. Alright, so as you can see, that ding that was in that face, I just took the high side down. See a little bit of scuffing. Just took a fine file, alright, and just took the burr off of that. Alright, so there we go. I'm going to stick with just 800, just put a nice little matte finish on it. You can still see there's a line here. Cannot feel it with my thumbnail. That is gone. I can't feel that at all. Just a little bit on the downside, but it's not, the burr's gone. When you run your finger across it, it's smooth. Super smooth. So yeah, that's just 800. Again, don't have a shoelace, so I was just kind of like between both fingers, kind of just walking my way around it and just buffing it all the way around. So I just need to do the same with this guy. And yeah, that's pretty rough. I mean, looks like this one had some ingress of water and started to rust just at the seal face. So, but that chowder mark right there needs to get just kissed with the file, and then this 800 should clean it up nicely so that it's nice and smooth again like this. Yeah, that's not sketchy at all. Alright, so what's going on here is I've got my 2-jaw puller, alright, and it's going into the head of a valve that I cut off. It's an extra valve that I had going into that sprocket just because it stands off the back end of the stub shaft that goes through. Remember, it's spring-loaded. We're just exposing that land where the C-clip's going to go. I have a feeling the minute I punch that in there, this is going to let loose and it's going to spring back out, and I'm going to have the clip go flying that way. We'll see. Alright, that was a little sketchy. I was able to get the ears of the two sides of the C-clip started and just kind of wedge it in there, and then just took a, you see everything's spinning. I'm turning the input shaft here from the transmission side, and the whole thing wants to turn. Now it'll differentiate if you give this some resistance. So again, shaft turning, output turning. So if I put two bolts in there and hold this side, get the other side in, it'll differentiate. Alright, long story short, there's no shortcut on this one. There's no little hack. I tried the ratchet strap, didn't work, so you'll see where I'm going to have to drive in and drive that down. I can hold the camera for that, but I can't hold the camera for putting in the lock ring. So I got my drift for tapping on the back and my C-clip. So everything's handy here, but let's go ahead and start driving this. Again, you don't want to come down and impinge that cross pin. You just want to expose that valley for that lock ring to go in. As soon as this gives you any resistance, just stop. Got resistance right there, okay. So now we just want to go ahead and take our pin, pop it in that slot. Alright, C-clip is in, top and bottom. Let's go ahead and lube those teeth on the planets and the side gears, and pull these rags out and set this thing up vertically. I'm going to have this facing straight up so that I can put the gasket on and get that surface has all been completely cleaned, ready for taking the gasket. Just need to wipe it down with some alcohol and get rid of all that oil that's on it. And then we'll test everything and then put the speedo gear in. I'll come back when that's underway. I can't do this one-handed because the whole case wants to fall that way. The minute I relieve the pressure on this whole thing's going to shift that way because it's hanging out the back. But yeah, no easy way. You need a press. Yeah, it takes quite a bit of force to get that spring to compress that's on that little stub shaft. So yeah, everything's done. Transaxle's finished. The only thing left to go in is the governor. I'm going to wait till the end because I do need to flip it up on end and take some measurements in order to subtract everything out in order to find out whether everything's to spec. All that remains is the transmission. Again, just waiting on the pistons. So the pistons for this subassembly, and for that subassembly. And then the accumulator piston I don't necessarily need, but I figured I was getting all new parts, just replace the whole piston. Because it is plastic and it does get brittle, it could potentially break. Don't think it will though. And then I've got replacement shims and a valve body separator plate coming in custom ordered from the only person that makes them that I'm aware of, and that's a guy out in Hawaii. So that's on its way. I ordered that on Monday and today is Wednesday, so we should see those possibly this weekend, but I'm not holding my breath, not with the mail service lately. So that's it, everything's done. Just waiting to finish it up, button it up, and throw it in the car. So looking forward to getting this finished and wrapped up. It's been a fun project, but at the same time I want to fire this thing up, at least get to the point where I can start building the engine. That's got a lot of stuff for the engine sitting in the living room that need to come out here. So I need to make room for it. So I got to get all this stuff cleaned up and put back together, get that case buttoned up, and be done with it. All right, guys, that's all I got. Later.